Not a drop.
Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
What it do, Chris? What it do?
Baby?
Go blue.
Man, dude. So we had a weekend.
I feel like everybody involved with Michigan had a weekend.
Yeah, so obviously the Juwan Howard stuff is a little crazy. We will get into that at length. You and I had a pretty eventful Sunday with the potential future of Michigan football, at least on the offensive side of the ball. We will talk about that. The Juwan Howard stuff has obviously been front and center, and it's been talked about like nationally. I mean, it's a national story. Obviously, on Sunday there wasn't a whole lot else going on. I mean, the NBA All-Star game and the Daytona 500, which we're not going to get into. I'm a little damaged after the results of that. Chris, do we want to let everybody into your world of your NASCAR expertise that really failed us on Sunday, or what?
Well, I didn't watch the race, so I don't know what the hell happened, but I can tell you I didn't know who the top three guys were. But we went through, I mean, the way NASCAR works is you just look at the name, and if the name sounds NASCAR-y, then you know that they're good. Like, for instance, Martin Truex Jr. That guy has to be good at NASCAR.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Ricky freaking Stenhouse Jr. If that isn't a NASCAR name, I don't know what is. So basically you go through and you pick out those names, and Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, the Busch brothers, they're usually going to be in the mix there. And like none of it happened. So I feel like you dipped your toe into the world of NASCAR using me as like the conduit, as the wealth of knowledge. And I failed you miserably.
Yeah. So for everybody out there, I dabble in the gambling world a little bit. I like to bet on the NBA. It's fun. No NBA for like a week. All-Star stuff was going on. And so I hit up Chris as my in-house NASCAR expert. I was like, dude, let's put a little juice on the NASCAR event, man.
Look at CJ with everything going on. We're leading off with NASCAR.
So anyway, long story short, we put $40 down on the NASCAR event, the Daytona 500, and none of our 8 drivers that we picked won, so we didn't win any money. There you go. All right. That's enough of that. Obviously, while Sunday was going on, Michigan basketball had a game. Standard little away game at Wisconsin, tipped off at noon. It was tied at halftime. Wisconsin really pulled away in the second half. Again, the same issues that have plagued Michigan all season: poor shooting from the outside, pretty porous defense, especially in the second half. Wisconsin pulls away and wins by a lot. 14 or 15 or 16 or whatever the final score ended up being. But that wasn't the story. As I'm getting ready to publish my post-game story, which is a couple, 3 standouts or three things that stood out: lack of outside shooting, lack of defense, not really a good rotation, not much depth. Take your pick. As I'm getting ready to publish that, Chris is driving. He's coming over towards my neck of the woods so we can get ready for our big interview that we will talk about here in a little bit. And all hell breaks loose. The handshake line between the two teams turns into a full-on brawl. Juwan Howard pops a dude in the face from Wisconsin. Musa Diabate, Terrence Williams, definitely throwing punches. Number 0, I can't remember the kid's name, from Wisconsin, definitely throwing punches. A bunch of stuff happens. And now, apparently, just within the last hour or so, it's being reported that Juwan will miss the remainder of the regular season, which is 5 games. And then I guess he'll be back for the Big Ten tournament. And if Michigan has any sort of postseason play, he'll be good to go there. So there's all of that. Chris, I know you didn't see it live, and we didn't really even get a chance to talk about it much because we were so busy with the interview stuff on Sunday. We got a chance to talk about it a little bit afterwards once we were unwinding a little bit. You said that you've evolved a little bit on this scenario. I haven't talked to you about this. I don't know what you're about to say. What are your thoughts on what transpired in the handshake line and how this all kind of unfolded?
Well, initially when, I was driving down, 23 when you called me and you're like, did you see the end of the game? And I'm like, no, why? What happened? It looked like it was a blowout. And then as you were telling me, I'm like, holy shit, like this sounds awful for Juwan Howard. And obviously Howard has developed somewhat of a track record of being a hothead. And you can go back and, and people have done that. They pulled out certain examples last year with the Maryland head coach, whatever. But initially my thought was, this is horrible. This is awful. This is bad look for Juwan Howard. I still feel that way because, and I was talking to my wife about this, no matter what happens, when you're in the position that Juwan Howard is in, no matter what happens, no matter what is done to you, anytime you get physical with somebody, it's going to be a bad look on you. It doesn't matter. When you take it to that extreme, that's going to be the look. So he's earned that to an extent. But what I will say, and where I've evolved a little bit, Juwan Howard was going through the line. Now, I know he said something, like I'll remember that shit or whatever the case is. He said something as he was walking by, but he was also walking by. He was on his way out of that arena. He didn't want to talk to, Wisconsin's head coach. He didn't want to have any interaction there. He said what he had to say, and then he was moving on until he was physically stopped and prevented from doing so. So to me, that right there, like you and I, just as men, as people, if we're walking and we're going somewhere and we're pissed off and emotions are running high, if somebody grabs me by the arm and tries to prevent me from like going where I'm going, I'm going to take issue with it. Mm-hmm. And I think Juwan Howard took issue with it. And I think when that happens, everybody else gets involved and then tempers flare and you see what happened. And what Juwan Howard did was obviously inexcusable. But my point is, none of that happens if he isn't grabbed and prevented from going to the locker room, which is where he was going. So I think that's got to be taken into consideration, man. Somebody grabs you, somebody puts their hands on you, all bets are off. And I get it, Cody. He shouldn't have said anything, but guess what? He did say something, and people talk and people jaw, and that's what happens in the sport. But when you go from jawing and talking to physically putting your hands on somebody, now you've escalated it to an entirely different level.
Yeah, I've just heard so many different things on this, and one of them is that up until yesterday, it was believed that Juwan Howard and Greg Gard actually got along quite well, and that they respected each other pretty much across the board. I mean, that's what I've been led to believe. So when you think, here's the deal, you're right, Juwan Howard. To me, Juwan Howard kind of acted like a baby. I think he kind of acted like a baby. All right, he's down 15. He's pressing, and Greg Gard calls the timeout. Juwan didn't like the timeout, but dude, you can't coach your kids hard to the whistle and then get mad at the other coach for literally doing the exact same thing. You can't get mad about that. And then they come back from the timeout, and Juwan fouls. So he one-upped it again in the confines of the game, in the confines of gamesmanship. Those were little jabs back and forth both ways. Juwan pressing late, Greg Gard calling the timeout, Juwan fouling, and then you get into the handshake line, and Juwan says, I'm going to remember that shit, and points right by his face, pulls his mask down to make sure he heard him and sees him. He was going up into that line with a bit of an agenda. I think that's an issue too, but I think it's totally fair to say if Greg Gard doesn't grab him and say, whoa, wait a minute, then Juwan just keeps walking and there's no confrontation at all. Now, if Juwan is a little upset and he wants to say what he wants to say, it's totally fine with Greg Gard to then be upset because of what Juwan Howard just said to him. That's why there's a lot of layers from this, back and forth, all different directions from the top down, because there were players on both teams that did stuff they shouldn't have done. The head coaches did a couple things they shouldn't have done. I actually didn't really see many of Michigan assistants doing things they shouldn't have done. I'm sure some stuff went on in the fracas in there, but there was an assistant coach for Wisconsin, Krabenhoft or whatever his name was, that came over and made things worse. Like Terrence Williams at first was trying to be peacekeeper. He had a hand on Howard. He kind of had a hand across some Wisconsin guys. You can read his mouth. He's saying, we're good. And then Krabenhoft comes over there and kind of gives Jerron Faulds a shove and gives Terrence Williams a shove. And that's when Juwan came over the top with the smack or the hit or whatever you want to call it.
So let me ask you this. You've just sort of walked through that scenario, and that's what's interesting to me. So Juwan Howard walking through the line. Clearly he said something, but again, it's words. He said whatever, said what he said. I'll remember that shit. Juwan gets grabbed and kind of held back by guard, right?
Yep.
And
by
then
the arm,
right.
and then you can hear guard saying, "Whoa, whoa, wait!" And
Right,
that's
but
when Juwan
clearly,
said, "Don't touch me."
right,
And then
clearly,
guard was the first one to drop an F-bomb. By the way, this is all audio clear as day.
correct. So you can see it. So Juwan clearly didn't want to be touched, didn't want to be grabbed, made that known. While that jawing is taking place, you have a Terrence Williams in there trying to play peacemaker. Juwan Howard's clearly frustrated by the fact that he just got grabbed by guard. And now you have another assistant coach from Wisconsin coming in and starting to put their hands on your players. If you're Juwan Howard, you're thinking, I'm trying to put clearly he's emotional. He's frustrated with the game. He's frustrated with the way the season's gone. Yep. But he also just got his arm tugged on by, the head coach that he was coaching against. And he also just saw an assistant coach come over and put their hands on his players. It's easy to sit back and watch that video 10, 15, 20 times and slow it down and say who should have done what. But if you're Juwan Howard and you're in that moment and those things are happening in real time, I honestly don't think that it was an overreaction, but sometimes overreactions are warranted when people step out of line. And I think that assistant coach inserted himself into something that didn't involve him, put his hands on players he shouldn't have put his hands on, and Juwan Howard wasn't having it. So he's going to have to deal with the consequence that came from it. But, I find myself in Camp Juwan on this one. I just can't.
I actually think that Krabenhoff, the assistant for Wisconsin, who ended up getting clocked in the head, was the most not out of line, because dude, you can't hit another dude in the head. You can't do that. No matter what, dude. You can't freaking do that. But for that guy to come from way down line on the bench where he was and put himself in the middle of that and start shoving on people and getting involved with players, that was one of the more escalating actions of the whole deal. Like, I don't think Juwan should have said, "I'm going to remember that shit," and disrespect guard and try to keep on walking. But look, honestly, like, if you're upset, you're frustrated, you don't want to have anything to deal with somebody, saying a little something and walking by is
jawing is commonplace.
Yeah, it's
right.
not
like
that big of a deal.
These guys talk all the time.
But on the flip side, and I hadn't thought about this because I didn't really know what the relationship was like between guard and Juwan. Apparently, they had a pretty good relationship. So in that exact moment, Greg Gard was thinking, hold on a minute, man. What's this about? If there was, I used to coach, man. There were a couple coaches that I knew really well and a couple that I didn't know at all. If one of them that I thought I had a really good relationship with was suddenly giving me shit because of something that happened in the game, I wouldn't feel out of line being like, whoa, man, wait a minute, and kind of stopping them, be like, can we talk about this for a second? We don't really know exactly what Greg Gard's motivation was or what he was going to say, because then after that, Juwan, 6'10", gets over top of him, grabs him by the shirt, starts swearing at him and pointing in his face, and then whatever Greg Gard was going to say was turned into F-bombs and back and forth, and it wasn't anything that he went there to say, I don't think. But
to me, here's the lesson. Here is if you want to water this thing down, what's the one lesson to take away from this? Don't put your hands on someone. And Gard, maybe there was no ill intent. Maybe he had good intentions by grabbing Juwan Howard and stuff. But clearly he was unaware of the mindset that Juwan was in. And I think Juwan wanted to make that very clear. And he did make that very clear. And the bottom line is, you don't put your hands on somebody else. Once you do that, you've crossed the line and all bets are off. And that's just where I'm at. And I feel that way about me, a player out there, my family. When somebody comes into your space, that's one thing. When they put their hands on you in whatever capacity that is, to me, that's a line that's been crossed. And I think, again, he's hitting somebody is never going to be, especially as head coach of, at the University of Michigan, that's never going to be acceptable behavior. But at the end of the day, I do think sometimes unacceptable behavior is warranted given the situation if you're willing to live with the consequences. And I think Juwan is. I think his players are going to rally behind him for it. And it's one of those things where you can already see it. People are splitting in the fan base. It's like, oh, well, he had a right. And it's like, hey, he should be fired. And I don't know, man. I can see it from both sides.
Yeah, I don't think he should have been fired. Like look. If Ward Manuel had released a statement today and said that, in the wake of the recent events, we have no other option other than to terminate Juwan Howard, I would have been like, yeah, you can't go around hitting people, dude. You can't hit people. I don't think that was necessary, and obviously that's not what happened. But if it had played out that way, I wouldn't have been up in arms about it. I've been watching basketball my whole life, man. I'm coming up on 40 years old. This has never happened before. I've never seen a head coach swing on and strike another coach ever. It's not ever happened. There's been a few like Woody Hayes hit a player, which is, I mean, he was canned immediately. You obviously can't do that. And there's been some other coaches who have put their hands on their own players where maybe that's transpired in a way where they've lost their job. But from the very beginning when this happened, I was like, I don't think he should be fired. First of all, I don't think he's going to be fired. I don't think Ward's going to do that. And I don't think he should be fired. But this was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad look. It was a pretty bad look from the beginning, from multiple angles, from both sides, from both teams. Both coaches did some things they shouldn't have done. It went beyond a little bit of gamesmanship and, talking some shit on the court to what didn't need to happen in the handshake line. But yeah, at the end of the day, I wanted to go back to the actual basketball part of it too, because I've seen some people in the comments saying like, well, why was Juwan pressing, when he was down 15 with 20 seconds to go? I don't really have a problem with that. I think you see plenty of games where when the game is at hand in that situation, the other team just comes across half court, dribble, and they even turn it over. They just let the shot clock run out and give the ball to the other team until the clock runs out. So you see it go that way. But look, man, Juwan's been trying to bring some fight and some fire out of this team all year. He's been trying to find some intensity on defense and some people who care about laying it on the line. So I really don't have any problem with him pressing at the end of the game. I really don't. But if you're okay with that, you've got to be okay with Greg Gard calling a timeout to get his walk-ons and his bench players set up to break the press, because that's something they've never done before. And then on the flip side, Juwan goes back and then he has this guy's foul and you put Wisconsin on the line, even though there's only 10 seconds left and you're down 15. Like, I get it. That's some gamesmanship back and forth. And maybe there was a little jawing that takes place in the handshake line, but that's where it had to stop. It had to stop right there with a little bit of jawing and a little talking. And instead,
there you go.
Greg Gard grabs Juwan, impedes his progress. Juwan goes way over the line and slugs a coach in the head. And all of that just didn't need to happen. But at the end of the day, Juwan is starting to develop a reputation now.
Right.
And that's a problem too, because he had a really aggressive really aggressive technical call earlier in the week. He went after Turgeon last year. He's had a couple things here and there with the officials in the past and with the media even a couple of times. And now he's starting to kind of develop this reputation of being a loose cannon. And, when he was hired, that wasn't his reputation at all. And so now you kind of wonder what that's all about and why that's popping up. I mean, we're not talking about a guy who's had, 3 to 5 episodes over the course of a 20-year career. This is year 3, man. He's still pretty new. And he's now got more of these incidences than any other coach in the conference. It's like you kind of start to wonder what this is about and if it's going to continue to be a problem.
I mean, I think it's a mixture of a few things. I think it's a mixture of the fact that, all things considered, he's still relatively new head coach. This is his first time really dealing with this type of adversity as a head coach. He's coaching at his alma mater, so there's the emotional factor. He used to play. He's a former player. So he's got that competitiveness in him. I just think there's a lot of factors. Oh, and they're not playing very good basketball either. So,
yeah.
There's a lot that contributed to it. But and look, I'm not trying to make an excuse, even though I am and I'm not, because I feel like I'm not trying to make an excuse for hitting somebody, but I just want to really hit the point home that it doesn't even get to that point if somebody doesn't get physical with Juwan Howard first. And once somebody gets physical with you, I think you sort of light the fuse for whatever type of explosion comes after that. Yes, Juwan Howard should have handled himself better, but man, when somebody grabs you, I think all bets are off. That being said, you're right. He has developed now this reputation, and there's a pattern here. And whatever comes of this, the bottom line is it cannot happen again. There can be no other instance from here on out of Juwan Howard stepping over the line, getting in somebody's face, grabbing somebody. That just can't happen again. Whether or not he wants to, whether or not it's justified. Look, we all know Juwan Howard loves this university, loves his players. We'll fight tooth and nail for them. Clearly, he will do that. We know that. He's got to dial it back. for the betterment of himself, of his team, the program, the university. He's got to dial it back. Can't happen again.
Yeah, it absolutely can't happen again. I don't think that I don't think that there were any real, real discussions about firing him. I don't think that came up, and I don't think it should have come up. But it just wasn't a good look. And like I said, it wasn't just not a good look for Michigan and Howard. Like, Guard kind of looked like a little petty little guy too, and multiple assistants and staffers and analysts for Wisconsin looked like absolute dickbags. I mean, you've got the guy out there doing like the suck it motion from like 50 yards away, and then his fat ass goes waddling off the court. I'm like, what is that guy doing? Fire that guy today. What is he doing? And then the Krabbenhoff guy who comes over there and inserts himself into the middle of it when he's also 30 feet away. It's like,
let me ask you, do you think that happens on the sidewalk? Do you think Guard grabs Juwan Howard like that if they're passing each other on the sidewalk? I just think
I do, because this is what I was saying, where I feel like they had a good relationship before. And so when Juwan gets so upset and talks shit to him and walks by him and won't even give him eye contact and pulls his mask down so he knows what he's saying, and he won't shake his hand even though you just played a game. And Guard's like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? Like, I thought we had a better relationship than that. And I'm not sticking up for Guard. You still don't need to grab somebody. But if that's a guy that you actually really respect professionally and you've had good conversations with before and you've got a good relationship, I would feel very disrespected by what Juwan Howard was doing right there. I would. And I would want to talk to him. I don't know if I'd grab him. I don't know if I would try to get in his face. And I don't think Greg Guard was going up there to get in his face until Juwan said what first of all, because it's not a good idea. You're going to get destroyed. Greg Guard's like, I don't know, what is he, 5'10", 230?
Kind of look like Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah, he's going to get destroyed. So I don't think that was his intention. But for Juwan to, first of all, I don't know if he's obligated to go through the handshake line, because he at first did not. He wasn't it's usually the head coaches are at the front. They meet first, they handshake it out, they talk for a second, then they keep it moving, and you go through the line. And Juwan didn't go through first. He hung back. I don't know if he was thinking, like, I can't even do this right now, dude. I'm not going through the line. I'm just going to stand back here. I don't know if I'll get a fine, whatever. I'm going to the locker room. But then at some point, he decided to get in the line and go through, and that's when he said what he said, and that's when Greg Guard grabbed him, and that's when they started jawing, and then there's fingers pointing and swearing all over the place, and it just spilled over from right there. They both let their emotions get the better of them. Juwan took it to a completely unacceptable level by hitting somebody. Greg Guard, you don't need to grab him and talk to him. Leave him alone. Let him go through if he's pissed off and doesn't want to talk. There were just a lot of things in both directions that didn't need to happen.
But that's where I'm at. You can see Cody Engel in the comments. He says, if Juwan Howard doesn't make a comment, does any of this happen? Yeah, it does. I think if Juwan Howard just walks by silently and doesn't shake Guard's hand, I think he's still going to grab him and stop him and try to figure out, what happened. Maybe. Why aren't you acknowledging me? I think that still happens. And so, yeah, did saying something help matters? No. But again, talking is always part of the game. The guys talk on the court, they talk off the court, they talk in the handshake line. Like, that's normal course of business. What isn't normal course of business is putting your hands on somebody. Once that happens, everything gets escalated. When it happens on the court, when it happens wherever, as soon as you make contact, as soon as it becomes physical, that's where it goes to another level.
I mean, I'm not a very aggressive dude. And if I'm fired up, okay, first of all, I'm already pissed off because we lost. I'm pissed off because of the gamesmanship and the back and forth. And then I'm walking through the line and you grab a hold of me, I'm going to be fired up. I'm going to be fired up. I'm going to be like, get off of me.
What are you doing? Right.
Yeah, get off of me. Why are you touching me? It wasn't aggressive. I know there's a lot of people like, he assaulted you. No, he didn't. He didn't assault him. He touched him, which you shouldn't.
He grabbed him with a purpose. I'll say that.
Don't touch another guy. Just
grabbed him with intent.
So we just got an email here from Michigan basketball. Let me see if I can pull this up and we can talk about it a little bit right now. You want me to? I'll just go ahead and read this out loud. You want me to do that, Chris?
So this is breaking email from the University of Michigan. Correct. We have breaking news here.
Breaking news for those of you who are tuning in live with us. Directly from Athletic Director Ward Manuel. Today's disciplinary actions underscore the seriousness with which we take the incident that unfolded on Sunday. Simply put, there is no room at Michigan for the behavior we saw. We will learn from this incident as a department, work to improve ourselves while operating under a spotlight, and move forward in a positive light. And quote from Juwan Howard. After taking time to reflect on all that happened, I realized how unacceptable both my actions and words were and how they affected so many. I am truly sorry. I am offering my sincerest apology to my players and their families, my staff, my family, and the Michigan fans around the world. I would like to personally apologize to Wisconsin assistant coach Joel Krabenhoft and his family too. Lastly, I speak a lot about being a Michigan man and representing the University of Michigan with class and pride. I did not do that, nor did I set the right example in the right way for my student athletes. I will learn from my mistake, and this mistake will never happen again. No excuses. And that's a perfect response because he did not say those things in the press conference immediately afterwards, and that was a bad look. That was a bad look for him to say he touched me, it was escalated. He didn't say I'm sorry once. He didn't say I shouldn't have done that. Obviously, he's now been coached up a little bit. This is what you have to say. This is what you have to do.
That's why I feel like, especially after something like that, you shouldn't be putting these guys in front of the media.
He probably shouldn't have even done a presser at that point.
That's what I'm saying. Like, emotions are still running high at that point. You're not thinking clearly. Like, it's just, but that right there, that's the response that, needed to come out. And you can say, clearly it's being taken seriously. And Juwan said what he needed to say. And, says it won't happen again. And I think that's the end of it. And look, at the end of the day, I think he's, I don't think by and large his perception among the Michigan fan base has changed. I think people still, love him to death, want him here, and just want to see him, do better. And I think he will.
And just the fallout, in case you guys hadn't seen the official, well, this is the official word. I think it was reported by, who was it reported by earlier? Pete Wetzel or some Dan Wetzel?
Yeah, Dan
Yahoo
Wetzel. Sports.
But now Michigan obviously has put their official spin on things and released this for the media. Michigan has fully accepted all disciplinary actions handed down from the Big Ten Conference. Effective immediately, Juwan Howard has been suspended for the remainder of the regular season. Prior to reinstatement, all parties will meet to make a final decision prior to the Big Ten tournament and any postseason participation. So apparently it's not completely done, but I would expect this 5-gamer to be that'll probably be it. He'll probably be back for the Big Ten tournament, and if Michigan does get invited to any postseason tournaments, the Wolverines will be led by associate head coach Phil Martelli, starting with Michigan's home game against Rutgers on Wednesday. Director of basketball operations Chris Hunter will have a temporary elevation to the third assistant position. Michigan sophomore Terrence Williams II and freshman Moussa Diabate have been suspended for 1 game each for their involvement. Those suspensions will take effect immediately, and no further disciplinary actions or comments will be made publicly. So that is that. That's all we will hear or see about this. Juwan will have a little 5-game vacation. He'll be back for the Big Ten tournament, I would guess. And it's not going to be the last time he's asked about this. The next time he's in front of a microphone, obviously this is going to be brought up again. But I actually think that's pretty good. I initially, I went on the radio with the Woodward guys today, and I was on with Sports Illustrated National a little bit ago, and I thought maybe just the rest of the year. I mean, just be done until the rest of the year, because it doesn't look like Michigan is going to make the tournament. I mean, and now you're down even more. Depth has been a problem. Now you have even less. You don't have your head coach for the rest of the 5 games. I think it's going to be next to impossible to make the tournament at this point. So with that being said, I thought it would just be, you're done for the year, Juwan. Pack it in. We'll see you next fall or summer, summer workouts or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot that comes with a situation like that. It really kind of sucks for Terrence Williams, who was in there trying to break it up. He gets touched by an assistant coach, and I think he gets sucker punched by number 0 for Wisconsin. He certainly didn't throw the first punch. I think he kind of got hit or tackled by an assistant. I mean, again, lots of angles, lots of layers, lots of bullshit to wade through. And now you've got a kid who was trying to do the right thing, who has no choice but to defend himself, and now he's suspended. Diabate's now done a couple of things. He had a little dust up at the Rutgers game. It's just bad, dude. This is the kind of stuff you don't need to be dealing with when your season's already on the brink and you're not playing good basketball.
It just it really shows you how fragile it all is, right? Like the success and the run and, making it to the Elite Eight. And then you go and have a season like this. And Michigan, Michigan fans are coming off of Big Ten championship year in football, but what did the year look like prior to that? So it just, these things can change on a dime. But I think at the bottom line is, somebody in the comments asked, can Juwan maintain his cool moving forward? I think that's probably part of the deal. He has to. There's no choice from here on out.
Yeah, no, sorry. That was just from Michigan side. I believe Wisconsin, Krabenhoff got suspended at least one or multiple games. Greg Gard got fined $10,000, and number 0 for Wisconsin was also suspended a game, the same as Terrence Williams and Moussa Diabate. Look, man, I taught middle school for a lot of years. That kind of irks me a little bit when someone says, "What about the Wisconsin?" Who cares? Who cares? Take care of your own. Do better for yourself. That was dude, that used to drive me insane when I would be disciplining a kid and their first response would be like, "But what about?" And they point their finger over. Dude, I'm talking to you. Take care of you. Stop being a clown. Stop doing what you're not supposed to do and take it like a freaking man. Don't worry about everybody else, dude. This freaking society today, bro.
Oh boy, here we go.
Good God, man.
Where are we going? Where is this headed?
Take some accountability and some responsibility for the shit you do and don't worry about somebody else. How about that? If everybody did a little bit more of that, we'd be in a lot better shape. There, soapbox rant over. I just saw so many people were like, "What about Wisconsin? What happened?" Who cares? Who cares what happened to them? I don't care. All right.
You know what the worst part about that whole thing was yesterday? You got me? Is my audio working? Because I had to come out.
Yeah.
You know what the worst part about that was? Is that it was like a rain cloud on an otherwise glorious, beautiful, spring-like Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could feel it in the air, right? You could feel it. Football's in the air. Things are happening.
My wife just texted down. We can hear you over 2 fans up here. Can you please stop yelling?
Wow. Over 2 fans. You've already got 2 fans running up there?
Well, her fan in her bedroom probably, and our room up there, and then the Sullivan's room where he's going to sleep.
You like to get the engines warmed up beforehand?
We get them going up there.
Get the turbines lubed?
Yeah, sorry. I got a little heated right there. That's just always been a thing for me. I mean, like I said, when you deal with a classroom of 30 middle schoolers and you coach sports and you try to discipline somebody who you see doing something wrong and their immediate reaction is to worry about somebody else, I can't deal with you like that. I can't deal with you like that. No, I'm not saying that Wisconsin didn't also deserve some repercussions, and they got them. They did. But why is your first reaction to say, "What about them?" I just don't. I can't do that, dude. I can't do that. Deflection of blame and deflection of accountability is a massive problem with people these days.
The thing is, I grew up as an only child, so there was nowhere to deflect. When shit went down, it was like, it was me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to what we did on Sunday, Chris, because there have been some people asking about it. It was your baby from the beginning. I don't know. Do you want to do a recap of how this all transpired and came together, what ultimately ended up happening, and then kind of what our plans are for moving forward with this? Because it went amazing. I know it was stressful, and I know you were, dude. Chris didn't have the pedometer on yesterday, but he would have broke it. I mean, the pacing, the back and forth on the cell phone, the trying to get stuff linked up and set up and on time and on task was. It was a sight. It was a sight to see, but it came together. Chris, the floor is yours.
I think you're probably the only person that's gonna appreciate what went into that, and just even leading up to like the final hour, how much of a cluster. Like I was looking at the photos, like from the photo shoot, and like everything just looked so simple. Like it just looked like it was all. There wasn't much going on, but like everything that led up to it. I mean, going back to it. So originally, and we had actually promoted it. I had reached out to JJ and we were going to do just a regular, normal live podcast interview like we typically do. See, yeah, there you go. Just an incredible experience. We were originally going to do just an interview with JJ McCarthy because we had him on prior to the 2021 season, before he had even played a game for the University of Michigan. And we talked about, like, how excited are you to run down the tunnel, think about your first game, and on and on and on. So it felt like a cool idea to bring him on after the year and just sort of reflect on what that experience was like. Well, then the Georgia game happened, and this photo comes out of, JJ, Andrel, and Donovan sort of standing there and looking on. And for me, it was like, this represents the future of the Michigan offense. And I think, why get JJ when you could get all three of these guys and, get them together and chop it up and talk shop, and reached out to them, and they were very accommodating. And look, they're college kids, they're athletes, they're busy.
Look at that smile, bro. Look at Andrel lighting up the room, dude. Lighting up the room.
But hey, look it was stressful. The leading up to it was very, very stressful. But like I said, I think the end result is going to be something that, you guys are hopefully going to really love. And we're going to start chopping everything up in terms of production and video. Brandon and I are getting together tomorrow. We hope to get it out. This week. But man, by the end, it was like, I don't know, man, like JJ and I were playing catch. Like he was throwing me heaters, and it was like tossing around the football, and just like, an hour conversation with those guys and getting to do that was just such an incredible experience. And the one thing I'm going to say, they are so mature beyond their years. Like, I think about what I was like at that age. I wasn't like that. I wasn't answering questions like that. I wasn't approaching life like that. We talked about mental health. We talked about what happened with Jim Harbaugh exploring opportunities in the NFL. We talked Ohio State. We touched on every topic, and they were wonderful about it. So, we'll put everything together. And again, the plan is to get the video out this week so that you guys can view it. But man, we're just excited about the way it turned out, and a lot of work went into it. So hope you guys appreciate it.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up right there, right?
That's it, man. Just cool guys, man. Yeah.
It came together super well. They were so appreciative, man. That was one of the biggest things that I took away from it, was how happy they seemed to be doing that with us. I mean, like, we were looking at it as like, man, this is incredible. We got these three guys. This is going to be great for the website. We're going to get so much good content. And Andrel actually came up to me after the thing was over, and like, a little bro hug, and was like, he's like, dude, this was so much fun. He's like, it's my first time ever doing anything like this. And when you think about it, he wasn't a huge level recruit. He didn't play a whole lot last year. Obviously, he had his big breakout game against Michigan State, but Michigan lost, so it was kind of overshadowed. And he wasn't like a regular. None of them were given to the media last year throughout the season, because they're freshmen and they're not regular contributors, and they're not playing. Why would I look tiny? I'm as big as those guys. I'm a hoss, bro. Malachi, give me some love, dog. Dude
lives in the gym.
I don't know about that. But no, it was it just came together.
I'm at the jungle gym at McDonald's.
There you go. With a double cheeseburger in my hand. But Andrel was just so appreciative. And like, I've known Donovan for a long time because he was a big time recruit and he's local. He was at West Bloomfield. So it was really cool seeing him again. And then, JJ, JJ, some of the stuff we talked about with JJ just really puts into perspective how a big time quarterback recruit, after we left, and we're talking about how the interview went, me and Chris and our two photographers that were there and the audio guy, we're all kind of chopping it up a little bit. Everybody was just so impressed with how poised JJ is, and how polished he seems to be, and how he handles all that stuff. And I was like, after talking, he's literally been groomed to be the leader of a program and a football team since he was in 5th grade. And when we started throwing the footballs around a little bit, and he was talking about how, he grew up using a Nike ball, and just we had some Wilson footballs and we had some Nike footballs, and he picked up the Nike one and was throwing that one. And he's like, yeah, I've always kind of threw a Nike ball. He's like, I don't have the biggest hands in the world, and it just feels better in my hand. And I'm like, oh man, you better be careful. You can't be talking about that before you go to the combine. You'll better start doing some thumb stretches. I was 100% joking. And I said, get working on some thumb stretches. And he's like, yeah, my quarterback coach has been having me do that since I was in 6th grade. And I was like, what? So that's like, it just really kind of put into perspective, like, these big time players like JJ, like Donovan, certainly Andrel to a probably a lesser extent, because he wasn't quite the top flight recruit that the other two were. This is their life, man. So for them to come and spend that time with us, it was awesome. It was an awesome time with those three dudes.
Surreal. The whole experience felt surreal. But what I will do, since it's going to take a few days for us to get this up and running, I'll give one nugget, one quote from JJ from our interview. That sort of
I can't believe you're doing this.
Just one quote. It's insight into kind of the mentality and some of the stuff that came out. I had asked JJ, just about what was the state of the team and what are things looking like. And JJ said something to the effect of, I'm a big believer that every day you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And he looked right at me and he's like, I can promise you this team is not getting worse. And he said it with such conviction and such that guy, I walked away from the interview feeling like this team is in good hands, man. Like these guys are sharp. They're intelligent. They're mature. They want to be champions. They are not even close to being satisfied with 2021. And you could feel it. It was a feeling in the air. It was special to be able to sit and do that with those three guys.
Yeah. We did not talk Madden ratings, Cody. We honestly, and like, it's amazing. Chris and I talk about this all the time, how quickly time goes by when you're doing something like this. Even on here on the pod, we'll come in, we're like, we don't really have a real set structure, only a couple. Today's a prime example. We've talked about Juwan and now the interview for a little bit, and we're at 41 minutes of time already. So when you sit down with these guys and you really want to dive into some good stuff, because there was plenty to talk about, the Harbaugh stuff, the new OC, some of the standouts on defense, young guys, how that's going to look, the quarterback bat. You go on and on and on. And Chris came up with an outstanding line of questions and hit on all of this stuff. And there just really wasn't time for fluff. We wanted to get good stuff from them. There were a couple, I don't know, not even really much off topic. The mental health thing is certainly a big deal. It's not football related necessarily, but that was about it, right? Am I missing anything? Did you go into anything that was kind of silly or funny, or it was?
No. We tried to pull Harbaugh stories out of them, and we, look at these guys are still jockeying for starting positions, so they're reluctant. They don't want to give the goodies out, but they clearly have a lot of good, funny, Jim Harbaugh stories. We know just from the outside looking in, he's an interesting character working with that guy, and Dwayne Jones, I don't know if that's what you're insinuating, but NIL is a big reason why that interview was able to take place. And
we talked about it with them as well.
Right. Yeah. Prior to that, things, you weren't able to do things like that. And I actually, I addressed that with them. I asked them flat out, what are the best parts and the worst parts about the whole NIL experience as a student athlete? And again, they just gave great answers. And another thing I want to say, I was really surprised by Andrel Anthony. Like I didn't really know much about him. I thought Donovan would be personable. He was funny guy. I knew, I had talked to JJ before, so knew what to expect there. Andrel was like, he was eager to answer the questions. He wanted to be, he was eager to be involved in the interview, and it felt like he was having a good time. And I'm a big Andrel fan. That. I think he's on the cusp of becoming great. And it was just, again, another cool experience.
Here's another sign of how things went. So we told them 6:30 to 7:30. We want you for an hour. This isn't something that's going to take all day. Really appreciate that much time. So it's literally 7:30. One of the cameras is starting to overheat from recording this video for so long. So I'm trying to keep an eye on that. And it's 7:30, which is, we told them that's when we were going to be done with them. So I kind of walk behind the action a little bit, and I hold up my watch and I show Chris, like, it's about time. And then Chris asks the question, they finish answering. I'm like, hey, just so you guys know, it's 7:30. You want to start wrapping up? And all of them were like, no, keep going. We want to get all these questions. This is great. We want to finish everything for you guys. So that was just another sign of like, damn, dude, like this is going well. They're enjoying their time. They thought the jerseys were sweet. I see Dwayne talking about that right there. We wanted it to be like uniform and not have them wear all sorts of bunch of crazy stuff and kind of fit the scenery for the photo side of things. Like Chris and I have an artistic background, so that stuff matters to us. And we wanted it to look good and be uniform. And it was, I don't know if I would say Chris it's your baby. You're going to be a little bit more critical than I probably should or need to be. Would you say it was perfect? When we got done, I was like, dude, that's a 10 out of 10.
It was as close to perfect as I think we could have gotten out of it. There was one more element that we wanted to add that we couldn't add for obvious reasons, just given the timing of everything. But outside of that, like I said,
I think we can say it. We wanted them to. We were
going to do like kind of a bit of a
B-roll.
workout. The idea was, part of the conversation was surrounding, their personal workouts or those after hours workouts the three of them were doing. For instance, after the Wisconsin game, it was reported that, they got back late and the three of those guys went and started, running through routes and Coach Harbaugh saw them on the way out and stopped and took a picture and, just getting in that extra work. And we wanted to get some insight into what that looked like and see what a workout like that looks like. But obviously on the eve of spring ball, you're probably not trying to jack up your arm or mess up your ankle or blow out a knee talking to some dinglings like us. So, I respected it, and, not getting that and getting the rest of what we got, I'd say it was as good as it could possibly be. And Scott, like we said before, we'll hope to get it out this week. There's a lot of content in there that we got to go through, and we'll try to put out as much as we possibly can, but we also want the product to be, we put all of this time and effort into it. We just want to make sure that the end result is worthy of the time and effort that was put into it.
Part of what Chris and I are going to discuss and figure out is how to best deliver it. Because honestly, as soon as we got done, I mean, I talked to Chris and I was like, dude, every question you asked could almost be its own individual content item. And we're going to do some of that, but we also want to deliver the whole thing, start to finish as a production, full length interview. So we're going to have some photo gallery stuff and individual, different clips. And I mean, we're going to try to put it together the best way that we can.
Should we do it in 3D?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Should we try to do 3D?
So when Donovan
it's like
it looks like he's going to hit you right in the face.
Or so when I sneeze during the shoot, it like,
but it was just a really good time. I mean, it's not something that you get to do a lot with those guys. They're extremely busy. It was hard enough getting them in the doors. Once they walked in, Chris almost fell to his knees.
I will say this. The last 30 days of planning for this interview have taken maybe 2 years off of my life. There's no doubt about it. And the last 2 days especially contributed to maybe a year alone.
Yeah. So it just really, really good job by Chris for pretty much putting the entire thing together. I mean, I don't know, Chris, before we do anything official, do you want to shout out those who helped make it come to life?
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. I mean, unfortunately, my phone died. I've got all the names in front of me. I'll try to remember it offhand. But we talked about the jerseys a little bit. That's a company called Five Hole Productions, I believe it is. The gentleman's name is Charles Lamb. He's located in Fenton. This guy does custom. Like, we were looking for something like that for a shoot, and it just so happens.
Here he is on the gram for those out there.
Just so happens this guy does customize jerseys, and he's like right in my backyard. So he turned them around in less than a week. They were fantastic. The guys loved them. Katie Moffitt at the Lincoln Athletic Building. I called her. We needed a facility. She was extremely accommodating, gave us an entire 180,000 square foot facility to ourselves, and basically said we can use it anytime we want. And then the photographers, I think it's Details and Daydreams, Nicole and Haley, that came out fantastic. I mean, they clearly, I was a little bit stressed out with what was going on, and they tried to put me at ease. And I mean, man, it made it, everybody that contributed made it such a great experience, I think, for everybody. And we walked away. It looked like such a simple production. But I think that's a testament to the work that went into it.
I don't know how much I'm going to tease it a little bit, dude. We got a little behind the scenes B-roll here, right going on.
Oh no.
Look at Donovan giving the Jays some
cleaning the
wiping off the Jays.
Always looking out.
Man.
Always looking out.
It was just a lot of fun, man. Just really cool kids. Obviously, this was another thing that's really funny. So
wait, hold on, Randall. There ain't no hair to fall out. There's no hair. There's nothing left.
For me, I covered recruiting exclusively for 7 years, so I knew what to expect when you're dealing with these kids. They're at Michigan now. They're a little older, a little more seasoned, but Chris got a taste of it. It's tough, man. It's hard to communicate with them. They got a lot going on. when they walked in, it was like a big relief. It was great. But then it's so funny though. You get to see the side of them. Like, dude, there's 110,000 in a stadium cheering for these dudes, and JJ's throwing 60-yard dimes down the field, and Donovan's making amazing. And then you see them, and they're just kids, man. They're just cool ass regular kids. And it just really puts a lot of that in perspective. And I'm sure some of that will come through in the interview. And that was a little taste of it. You know, I broke out a pair of Jordans that I hadn't wore before, and Donovan's, you know, brushing the turf off. I mean, it's funny, dude. It's funny seeing them in that kind of environment, because you just really don't get to very often. It's usually, you know, from a long ways away or on TV, and they're making plays. And I don't know. It was awesome.
And once again, it's worth being said again that none of that is even possible without people like you tuning in and viewing and, you know,
Absolutely.
reading the articles and coming to the Facebook page. Like, if we don't have a following, those guys have no interest in talking to us. So literally your involvement with what we do here is why we're able to do things like that. So the more of that we get, the more, you know, the more stuff like that we're going to be able to produce. And I think it's fun for everybody. So I always walk away from these things feeling extremely grateful and appreciative for.
I don't know if I want to.
I hold on one second. I know all that goes into this from, you know, from what you do, from what the photographers did, the jerseys, the people who tune in. Like, it takes a lot of people to make something like that happen.
No doubt. I don't want to out Chris too much though, because Chris did say, "I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that again." I'm not going through all that.
Retired.
I'm going to talk him back into it. We're going to get Chris back on the case, because he did an outstanding job of pulling it all together, and the jersey stuff and the photographer and the audio and the facility and just everything that came together to really make it an awesome time is gonna turn out really, really well, I think. And I'm excited to start looking at it. Chris and I haven't even really dove into it yet. We got the photo link this morning. The video and audio came through literally within the past couple of hours, and so we're gonna be able to, you know, really dive into it and start chopping it up. I know I'm seeing a couple people. This is another thing we haven't quite decided exactly how we're going to do yet. If it's going to be more of like a YouTube rollout where we want to get those subscriber numbers up so we can start doing some more stuff with the YouTube channel and things like that. We're going to tease it, obviously, on the website, WolverineDigest.com. Certainly going to have some of it located over at the Winged Helmet. It's going to be in various spots. We're trying to think of the best way possible to get it in front of as many people as we can, and also where, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what we do for a job. We want it to benefit us too. We want to get those subscriber numbers up. We want to use YouTube more. We want to get as many people seeing this as possible, because it also helps the small businesses that came out to help us. So there's a lot of things.
I would also say that it's important that, like, nobody wants it to be out quicker than we do. Like, I think there's just so much good stuff. I cannot wait to get this thing out. But again, just make it, like, we just got the audio a couple hours ago. So I do kind of like that idea, Cody. Maybe that's something we talk about, premiere it for a live audience. You know, maybe I'll call a local theater and see if they can run it, and we'll have some people just come down and watch it. But I'll contact a theater in Ann Arbor and see if some people want to come down on an evening and watch the premiere for free.
That would be,
I don't see why
that would be another first. That would be another something that the Winged Helmet and Wolverine Digest is doing that nobody else is doing.
Well, you know, but listen, there it is. Without Cody, am I even thinking like that? Like, this is definitely a collaborative effort. So again, it's just a cool experience. Can't wait to get it to you guys. It's something that I'll remember forever. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, it was really cool. And the photographers that we had there, they're big Michigan fans. So I mean, the level of professionalism and how they held it together compared to what I know they were going through was also as impressive as anything there, because they're diehard fans. Nicole Genro is the young lady who has the photography business. I grew up with her. She's another New Lothropite. I know her husband. I know her family. I know his family. She shot family photos for me. She shot family photos for Chris. It just was so cool how it all came together. A good buddy of mine that I grew up with is the head football coach at Birch Run High School. He donated some footballs for the event. I mean, it just all love. It was all love and positivity, and it came together. Chris didn't have an aneurysm. I mean, there was some sweat on the head, but it came together, dude, and people are pumped.
It was, I'll tell you, there was more sweat. Well, we'll just, I was sweating. I was sweating and
he's a dog.
All right. And right on that note, we're gonna.
Where do you go from there? Where do you transition? I don't know.
I had a lot of sweat on my head. You should have seen it when I.
You should have seen my ass.
That's a drop. That's a drop all day. I'm writing that down. 54-minute mark right there. That is a drop all day. That's a drop all day. 54-16, I believe it was. All right. We talked Juwan Howard. We talked the interview, which, again, we're going to start rolling that out ASAP. I mean, we want to get it out as soon as possible. Timeliness is part of the – I mean, we want to be timely with it. There's no doubt about that. And then we're going to see what we get for availability for spring ball. So we'll kind of wrap it up there. I mean, we did a pretty deep dive into the new coaching staff and this 2022 schedule and some of the storylines and things like that. But Chris, with spring football officially starting today, 1:30 was the first practice today. We made sure we talked about that too. We're like, we can't be keeping you guys out here tonight if you got to get up at 5 a.m. for spring ball. Spring ball started at 1:30. They got it going today. If you were there, all right, if you were a fly on the wall inside of that building, inside Glick or at the field house or on the outdoor fields or wherever they did, what would be the biggest thing you hoped that you would have seen today? What if you were watching the entire practice today for spring football, what's the one thing you're like, God, even though it's day one, I better see this?
I feel like I'm going to get some shit for saying this, but I'm just going to say it. It would be JJ running with the ones. That's what I would hope to see, because to me, that says to me that everybody has a clear understanding of what needs to happen and they're not wasting any time. They're making it happen now. I think that transition needs to happen. So if I were a fly on the wall and like looked over and saw that happening, I would think, I'm excited, bring it on. If that's not happening, well, I think it eventually gets there anyway, but it would be nice to know that they're wasting no time in making that transition.
That's where my mind went right away. My mind went to, it's got to be JJ, man. And it's such a weird dynamic for Cade, who just did what he did and led the team to heights that nobody thought they would get to. It's got to be JJ, man. It's got to be. It's got to be. I mean, it was never going to be discussed, and it's never going to be discussed, but I can't imagine seeing what we saw last year in flashes from JJ with his athleticism, his ability to move the ball with his legs, how he can throw on the run, the different arm angles, the zip, the pop off of his hand, the accuracy. I just cannot imagine other high-level football players looking at both of those and being like, I'd rather have Cade. And I know that sounds harsh, but I just can't imagine that. So I'm with you, dude. I think if I was watching the team roll it out for day one, I'd want to see JJ with the ones and taking control and being the guy right out of the gate, man, from start the jump.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and that's why I advocated for it last year too, because I didn't want there to be any wasted time. Like, to me, it's always been known that he's the guy. So if he's the guy, just get it going. And he talked a little bit about being sprinkled in here and there and being able to make some plays. And that's another part of the interview that I'm excited for people to hear is, what's that like coming in randomly and like, getting your shot at often weird times. And, he sheds a little bit of light on that, but I think it's clear. I think it's clear that he's the guy. And here's the way I look at it. Cade McNamara is, if you're the family, Cade McNamara is the minivan. Like, sturdy, reliable, gets everybody from point A to point B without too much incident, And JJ is the Ferrari. And it's risky. And the engine might run hot a little bit, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And you didn't buy a Ferrari not to drive the Ferrari. Like, there's a reason why you went out and recruited JJ and brought him to Michigan, and it was to play JJ. Like, I'm sorry, but dude's a highly rated quarterback. He came here to play. He needs to play. I appreciate everything Cade McNamara did in 2021 for the football program with Ohio State, winning a Big Ten title, all of that. He will forever be a Michigan legend. His time has passed.
My man just called Cade a minivan. That happened, folks.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a minivan. I've tried to get my wife to get a minivan. I like the idea. You can put stuff in it. It's That's
the wrong button. I just heard you just trying to
vehicle. It's a good vehicle.
Good vehicle, damn it.
It's economical. It makes sense. It's practical. You're not pushing the limits or the boundaries. You're not going to get any tickets.
37 viewers.
Listen.
14 seconds.
Okay, he's a Suburban. I'll give him that. He's an SUV. He's an SUV. A sleek one. But JJ's still the Ferrari.
That was great. That might have to be a drop too. I don't know where. I can't remember where exactly that was. About the 58-minute mark. I'll mark
exactly,
it down.
Chris. Nobody wants safe. Who the hell wants safe in today's college football? Sling it. Throw it 55 times. I'll take a couple interceptions if it means I get 5 or 6 TDs through the air and I'm entertained.
Are you not entertained?
Entertained.
I'm entertained. I am entertained right now after that, dude. Well, there you have it, man. Juwan Howard, 5-game suspension. Phil Martelli, acting head coach, effective immediately. No Musa Diabate, no Terrence Williams for a game. And Michigan's got 5 really tough ones left starting on Wednesday against Rutgers, who they lost to in Piscataway. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. Interview that we just talked about at length. Super pumped about it. We'll be sprinkling it out here over the next. I mean, Chris and I plan on getting together tomorrow to really start hammering this thing now that we have all the files and everything. So that should be sweet. And yeah, keep it locked, man. We'll continue to post it at various places, like we said. If you're not subscribing to the YouTube page already, please go do that. It's just the Wolverine Digest on YouTube. Obviously, the Winged Helmet Facebook page. Stuff will be coming out on my Twitter. Stuff will be coming out on Chris's Instagram. And then, of course, WolverineDigest.com, our mothership, the Sports Illustrated website. That kind of, it's nice to be able to say Sports Illustrated. We'll say
a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah.
Feels like.
A lot of irons in the fire.
I gotta try to massage the teat a little bit.
Massage the teat. Get it. What's hilarious is that you laugh in the back of that clip the exact way you laugh, just like all the time. So I'm like, is he laughing? Is he laughing at me playing the clip, or is that the clip where he's laughing?
Something about the teats.
The teats, man. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening on a Monday night. We'll be back on Wednesday again. Hopefully, we've got some of the interview to talk about on Wednesday. That would be a great goal for us to have at least some of that out by the time we're on the show again on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. So thank you for listening. We'll see you on Wednesday. Take care.